So, backtrack. I normally talk about bags and fashion and things like that, but every so often I do talk about work. And actually those videos where I talk about work are my most favourite videos to film, and I would do more of them, but not many people watch them, which is why I don't. But I thought for this bonus video this week that I would talk about work, because there are some, so I always think in life there are kind of, you go through things and there's life lessons, and there can be points in your life where, I was actually just having this conversation right now with a friend of mine, I really feel like you can go through points in your life where you're stuck and you can't move on. And it's my belief through kind of past experiences that in those times it's normally been because there's been a kind of like life lesson I've needed to learn from it, and then as soon as I've kind of caught onto that and learned, suddenly the door opens and I can move on to the next stage. And I don't know if you believe in that, but that's definitely been something for me whenever I look back through times in my life where I've been kind of stuck in a situation. As soon as I've kind of picked up whatever it is that I need to know, I'm able to move on. And I'm gonna talk to you about every single job that I've ever had, going all the way back to when I was 12 years old, because I thought this might be really helpful, and I'll take it all the way through to what I'm doing now. But mainly I want to say that those jobs that I did in the early days, they are the ones that I reflect back on the most. They are the ones that actually have given me way more life lessons than any of the jobs that are more professional. And some of the stuff I've done is weird, okay, and you probably wouldn't expect it. So the first kind of job that I started doing was, I was 12 years old and I started doing car washing. The whole background to this was, you know, when you kind of get to that age of like 10, 11, 12, and you go from wanting toys, let me just twist this a bit, you go from wanting kind of toys and stuff like that to wanting clothes. You want to be able to like buy music or makeup, that kind of thing. And I hit that point, but I didn't have the money for it. My dad was like the hardest grafter I've ever known, and he was very, and still is, very proactive. So if things aren't working out, if he needed more money, he'd be always thinking about, okay, what can I do, that kind of thing. I like that, because that was very much something that he taught me to do, and he always used to say to me, and even now he's like, if ever you're in a bad situation with money, you need to think outside the box. Instead of letting it kind of drag you down, you need to think quickly and cleverly about what you can do to earn money. So car washing, I reached that kind of age where all of my friends were, you know, like wearing cool clothes and stuff like that, and my parents weren't the kind to give us loads of pocket money, mainly because they didn't have it, but also if I were to say to my parents, I'm going out, can I have some money? They would be like, well, what have you done to earn it? You know, you can't just have free money, you need to, and they really taught you that kind of respect. So I'd gone out shopping one day with my best friend at the time. I was really surprised about it, actually. I was really like, oh my God, you're so lucky. But we got dropped off at the shopping centre by her mum. And at the time, I was not allowed to go out on my own. And my mum didn't know that we'd gone shopping on our own. Now, my friend used to do it all the time, so to her it was normal. But to me, I was kind of a bit like, oh my God, I'm going to be in so much trouble if my mum ever found out. She never found out. So we went shopping, and then it turned out that my friend's mum had given my friend her credit card, and I was like, oh my God, because she was just like, shoes, clothes, at 12 years old. This was back in the day when you didn't put in a pin, you signed it, and my friend just knew the signature. And that was the point where I thought, okay, I want to get to a point where I'm not going to have enough, I'm not going to have the money that you're going to have on a credit card, but I want to get to a point where I can go out and I've got a bit of money to spend as well, as opposed to not very much, and I'm kind of thinking, what sandwich and drink can I buy myself today? So the car washing thing was really born from that, because at that age, you're not old enough to actually go and get a job, but it's that age where you want to start earning money. So I started washing the cars at home, and then from there, I started washing the wider family's cars. And I also started doing some of the neighbours' cars as well. And then I kind of developed it from there. So not only could you get your car washed, but I would also do your gardening for you. So it was like a bolt-on service. So I used to like mow lawns, do the weeding, like cut out the borders, like even I got to like, I was like trimming hedges. I could do the whole thing for you. And it actually loved doing it. It was a hard day's work, but at the end of the day, when you got the cash and you went back to your bedroom and you were like counting it out, putting it in your piggy bank, it felt really like quite liberating actually. The next thing that I went to from that, so when I hit about 15, a couple of my friends were working as waitresses at this kind of bar, pub place. And they were my age and they were like, you know, you should work there because the money's quite good, the hours are really flexible, and it's quite fun because everyone there was kind of around the same age. So I went and got a job there, and I was working there after school 1 day a week, and then I was also doing weekends, so I was doing days. So I was working Saturday in the day and Sunday in the day, which gave me the evenings to be able to go out and do whatever I wanted to do. And I did that for around about a year to 2 years. That was the first time that I was being paid into my bank, and it felt quite grown up. I was better able to manage my money. Then the next job that I did, and this is a job that I've spoken to you about before, so I went on to being a cleaner. But before I got to that job, so I've been working as a waitress at this one particular place. I had come to hear of a care home that was recruiting kitchen porters, and the money was double. So for one shift, the money at the care home was double what the money was at the bar I was working at. And also the shifts were shorter. So at the bar, you'd have to get there at 6 and you wouldn't leave until 11:30 at night. Whereas at this particular place, it was 6 until about 8 PM, I seem to remember. So what I used to do when I used to get there was a chef in the kitchen, and you'd have a menu of everyone staying in the care home. And the day before, they would put in their food order, and then the chef would be making up all of the food on offer for that day, and you would go through the bit of paper and you'd have a tray for each room, and then you'd put all the food on it of who was having what, and then you'd line them all up on a trolley, and then you'd go around and you'd take the food around. Part of that job as well might be, there were some residents in the care home who were quite elderly and they couldn't necessarily eat. So although that wasn't our job, very often quite a few of us used to help those people, just, you know, help them eat and make sure that when you go and collect the trays up at the end, that you're not collecting up a tray off someone who hasn't been able to eat anything. Then while everyone's eating, you became a kitchen porter. This was the bit of the job that I hated the most. So for anyone who's not, basically a pot wash. So what you did is there'd be a conveyor belt, and you'd have someone up the top end scraping all the old food off, putting it in the bin, and then they put all the dirty plates on the conveyor belt. You'd then have someone managing the sink. So there would be molten boiling water like coming out of this like industrial tap. You'd have rubber gloves on, and you would have to like clean off any food that the dishwasher wasn't going to get off the plates. You'd also have to wash out cups and stuff like that, because the dishwasher wouldn't necessarily get kind of like tea stains off. You'd then put it in this dishwasher, but it was an industrial dishwasher, so it only needed about 5 minutes to kind of clean the plates. Then you had someone at the end who would be drying them all off, and it was also bad for them because the plates are roasting hot. You've got bare hands, you're stacking up the plates, putting them away. Anyone in that line who is not keeping up will muck up the next person up the line, and you've got a certain amount of time to do that, again, before the lights switch off and you get out. That was the bit that I didn't like the most, and the only reason why I didn't like it was actually the effects that it has on your hands. So even with rubber gloves on, if you're the person washing stuff up, or if you're the person putting stuff away, your hands burn. Like, honestly, they burn so badly. You'll get given a plate and it will be roasting, and you just have to suck it up and put it away. So I've been doing that job for around about a year, maybe even less than that actually, and when the summer holidays came, there was always more work in that place that used to come up, because they knew that a lot of the school and college kids that used to work there would be up for kind of earning some more money. So this job came up to be a cleaner, and this is the job that I've spoken to you guys about before. And the cleaner job was very different hours. You had to be there at 6 a.m. and you worked all the way through until about 4 o'clock, I think. There would be a group of cleaners. You would have like one manager, and our manager was the nicest lady. She was the loveliest lady. And it was her job. She was also a cleaner, but it was her job to make sure that everyone was on time. So you had a certain amount of rooms you had to clean to a really high professional standard within a certain window, kind of time frame. And then there were communal bathrooms you had to clean as well. And that job, that taught me so much. It taught me humility. It taught me the concept of really hard work. But also, my God, I loved the people that were residents in that place. I loved the conversations with them, hearing about their childhoods and their young adulthoods. And they just wanted to talk. Because as I said, the saddest thing was, not everyone, a lot of people in there had families, but their families never used to go in. So you'd go in there and they'd be like, oh yeah, someone to talk to. And that was the trickiest thing, because you really, I'm a chatterbox and I always wanted to talk to them. But the manager would be like, okay, you were in that room too long, you need to get on to the next one. And she also understood that these people want to talk, and you've got to strike the balance right between talking to them and giving them that time, but also not taking too long. That job also taught me how to clean like a pro. So you got taught things, you got taught hacks. Like when you do professional cleaning, you get taught things such as you put the lid down on the toilet and then you sit on the toilet and you need to look for things that are at eyesight that you wouldn't see when you're standing up cleaning. So for example, it could be the underside of the sink. It could be if you've got a fixed soap dish on the wall next to the bath. That's often an area that you will clean on top of, but you won't think about the underneath. And when you're sat down at toilet level, that is where you get to see kind of dirt that the resident of that room would see, but you wouldn't necessarily. And that's something that I still do now when I clean the bathrooms here. I kind of know all of those kind of spots. And I always said, and I still say this now, I would love to have my own cleaning company, because I love cleaning and I love that attention to detail. And I've always said that if anything changes in my life, I think that's what I do. Now from there, the next thing, so I was doing that job until I went to university. I go to university, and the first year I was quite lazy because I got to university and I was having such a blast and I had all this free money from the bank that I was just like, I'm just gonna go and have fun. And very few of my friends in first year actually had jobs either. And the ones that did, and this was the unfair thing about it, the friends that did have work ended up being kind of not part of any one group because they were never there long enough in the day or in the evening to fit into any one group. And towards the end of first year, when I got myself into quite a lot of debt by that point and I didn't have the money to go out, I really noticed that as well. When you're not the person, when everyone's going out in the evening and you're not, you can really quickly end up out of the group. So I consistently got to a point where I couldn't go out. I really wanted to, but I just couldn't afford to. And that can really, you can start slipping. It's like people just naturally forget to invite you because they assume you won't go. One thing that I did in first year, and it was towards the end of first year where I had this lack of money, and it was all through second and third year. So my dad is a builder and he doesn't care that we're girls. He's like, if you want to earn some money, get yourself on the building site. I'm not joking. So I started working for him on and off from the age of about 15. So while I was doing the waitressing job, it was very, very ad hoc. It would be like, Dad, can I have some money? And he'd be like, yes, but you got to work for it. I've got a job next week, be there. And so that was quite ad hoc. When I was at university, I started to do it a lot more. And again, that was a job that you wouldn't think it, but my God, I learned a massive amount. You get on site, and you had to get there quite early. You get on site, and I did everything from operating diggers, which is really difficult because you have kind of 2 gear sticks. You have one for like moving backwards and forwards and like turning side to side, and you've got another for like the digger bit on the front. It's really difficult. I've done that. I've like helped to dig foundations, but also I learned how to fix so much stuff. Whether it's like plumbing. I didn't get too involved in electricals because that's really dangerous, but I was able to observe, and the amount of things in recent years that around the house I'm like, oh, that's broken, or the radiator's not working. Oh yeah, but I know what to do with that. That really taught me a lot as well. And bizarrely, you would imagine that on a building site that the other guys on the building site would be troublesome. They're not. They weren't. They were so like, oh my God. And the other great thing as well is that as a woman, I was able to do things that some of the guys couldn't do. So there was this one occasion where we were fitting these lights in someone's house, and it was like a chandelier type light, and you had to get a bulb inside this glass kind of droplet shaped thing. So it was like glass droplets. It looked like a bluebell, and the guys couldn't get their hands inside the thing to screw the bulb in. So I could do it, like I could fit my hand in. So actually it was bizarre, but it ended up being, you just end up complementing each other, I guess. Then when I got to, I think it was second year as well, I took up a job on the weekends, and I was working in a car dealership as a showroom host. So I was basically, when you walked into the dealership, I was the person that greeted you and did all of that kind of thing, and found out what it is that you wanted, and who best to kind of like, what salesperson was best to help you, or frankly, also my job was to work out if someone was a time waster. That was really very much part of it, because very often the salespeople could be quite busy, and they might end up talking to someone that I hadn't vetted very well, and then they're kind of like, well, that person actually only wanted a brochure and they're not looking to buy a car until like next year, so that's kind of wasted my time. So that was the next job that I did. Then that job kind of turned into more customer service. So the stuff that I was doing by this point was data collection, but also kind of like mail shots. Mail shot is a fancy word for printing out an unsolicited advert that gets put into an envelope that gets mailed to people that never asked for it, and it probably goes in the bin. Now, this next point was when stuff started to get real. And the next kind of bit of work is really what led me up to what I'm doing now. So after I was working in that kind of customer service role, I figured out, I've done a whole video on this, but I figured out what it was that I wanted to do in my life. And it was just because I was working on a project, and someone who worked at a marketing agency invited me in one day to like see the completion of this project we were doing. And as soon as I got into the agency and I saw it, I was like, this is the kind of place I want to work in. So I pitched myself for such jobs, managed to get a job in this agency, and I tell you what, it was, I think I cried. It was the best day of my life. I was so excited. If you've ever worked for kind of like marketing, PR, ad agencies, you'll know they're very fast paced. You work quite hard, and you can work quite long hours, but it's kind of like, I guess it depends on the agency you're in, because I've been in I was in one that wasn't like this, but it's quite like party atmosphere, and it's kind of very work hard, play hard. And when I got there, I was working with these amazing brands, going to like really good parties, delivering so much work in the day. I would get to the end of the day and I'd just be like, how have I managed to do that? And it really gave me like a buzz. And then from there, I just stayed in the agency sector. And then I ended up getting as senior as I could. And then that was when I decided to start my own business, and that's now what I do now. So I do exactly the same thing that I did in agencies, I just do it with my husband. But honestly, those jobs before I started working for an agency, they're the jobs that taught me the biggest lessons. And I really want to say, for any of you, whichever point of your career you're in, particularly if you're like younger and you're thinking, I don't want to wash dishes for the rest of my life. Don't worry about it. If you don't want to do it, I always think if there's somewhere, if you kind of know the direction you want to go in, as long as you're working hard to get there, the rest will happen. It might take a bit of time to get there, but there will always be a reason. So all you can do is know where you want to aim for and just work hard towards it. I really hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the weekend, and I will see you in the next video.